Hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Naveed. So I'm going to be your mentor today, and we're going to be going over web security. If you do have access, if you were able to join the 2019 game.picoctf.com, I'd encourage everyone to join to log in right now because we're going to be doing some live demos on there, and it would be really awesome if you guys could, follow along. Okay, so everyone, thank you for joining me for CanHack 2021 Web Security 101 workshop, and we're going to be going over web security and what it entails and capture the flag challenges. And I'm going to be your mentor today. My name is Samin. And just before we get started, I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about CanHack and the story behind CanHack. So CanHack's mission is to engage and educate diverse Canadian high school students in the field of cybersecurity through a fun and free web-based game competition. This program is based on the very successful PicoCTF platform developed by the Carnegie Mellon University, Scilab Security and Privacy Institute, and this competition will help address the cybersecurity and privacy skills gap impacting Canadian security. So the importance of CanHack. There's going to be a huge need for cybersecurity professionals in the future, and we're hoping that with this competition, it's going to establish a basic literacy for cybersecurity and privacy at an earlier age, so that we can excite you about them. A lot of what we will learn today is used in real life by cybersecurity professionals, so it's really exciting. So about me, I am a cybersecurity consultant. I'm also an avid CTF player. I love playing capture the flag challenges, hackathons. It's a lot of fun and I learned so much from them. And if you have TikTok, you can follow me. I am Cyber Nerd on TikTok. That's a little bit about myself. So PicoCTF. So what's PicoCTF? That's the platform that this Capture the Flag challenge will take place on. It's going to be where we're going to actually play the competition. And if you don't know, what is CTF? I think we're going to do a poll right now asking to see how many of you guys know what what a CTF is, and if you've taken part in a CTF before. So CTF is short for Capture the Flag, and it's a type of cybersecurity competition where contestants are presented with a set of challenges and they have to solve them using their creativity, technical, Googling, problem-solving ability. There's a flag that you get, and using that flag, you have to submit it by solving a problem. Once you get that flag, you get a point and you can advance to the next level. So moving on, actually, let's go back. I'm going to do a demo of PicoCTF, and I'm going to show you guys what PicoCTF actually looks like. So this is PicoCTF 2019 game. Let's go to picoctf.org. This is their website right now. This is where you're going to sign in for the competition. So what I want to show you guys is you can also sign up for an account here, and you can actually practice some of the older challenges using this account. If you don't want to just practice the 2019 challenges, they have 2018 challenges on here as well. What I really like about this website is the Learn section. There's a lot of resources, and they've added a new section called Pico Primer. Pico Primer gives you a basic knowledge, a basic layout of all the skills you will need to be successful in a Capture the Flag competition. And I encourage all of you to go through this definitely before the competition. We will be covering some of the stuff that is in here today for web security. Okay, so let's go back to the slideshow. So that is PicoCTF. The next platform I'm going to talk about is Piazza. Piazza is a support forum for students, and students can post their questions using this forum. This is going to be our primary communication during the competition and prior to the competition. So if you guys join now, that way we can all communicate. And if you have any questions, if you guys need help with any problems from past problems, you can post them here and we can help you with that. So I'm going to post a link in the chat. And if you wouldn't mind taking just a few seconds to use that link to join, our classroom, which is going to be right here. So this link, you are going to click on this link, and I'm going to share it in the chat box right now. So that is the link, and if you could just take a few seconds to, is that for everyone, including mentors and students? Yes, it is, Justin. It's a link for everybody to join. Basically, what is going to happen is all the mentors are going to be on this link. And if you have any questions during the time, you will be a mentor will be able to answer your question. So I will just give you guys a couple minutes to join that. Okay, so once you have joined that link, back here, once you have joined that link, you're going to see this is going to be the home page. And everyone that's joining the link, please join as a student. So this is going to be the home page. And over here, you can post questions. So I've grouped it into 6 categories: general questions, web security, cryptography, forensics, binary exploitation, and reverse engineering. So let's say if you have a question about web security, you can go in the folder right here, create a new post. I am looking for more resources for web security. You can put in your detailed question here, and then you can just post this. And then when a mentor sees it, they will be able to get back to you on the platform. What's really helpful about this is that if at any time you are stuck and someone else has a similar question, they can as well look at your question. And we can help everyone out as a community, and it's going to really help everybody out. And we have a lot of cybersecurity professionals who are mentors on that chat, so it's going to be really beneficial for everyone. So that is a little bit about the Piazza platform. Okay, before I go into the web security, does anybody have any questions, any concerns? Okay, so then we'll move forward. So the agenda for today is general skills. Then we're going to go over overview some general skills that are really important for web security, not web security, sorry, for capture the flag challenges in general. And knowing these skills will be crucial to be able to, actively solve the capture the flag challenges. So we're going to be going over those. Then we're going to talk about what is web security. We're going to talk about websites, developer tools. We're going to talk about the HTTP protocol and then code injection attacks, and we're going to do some hacking. So as many of you know, we usually use a graphical user interface, also known as a GUI, to interact with our computers, which is when we hit buttons, we open up folders using a display, and we have a really a visual, we're able to do it visually. But what is a terminal or shell? A terminal or shell is a way for you to type in commands directly and your computer is able to execute them. And you might have seen people using it. There's a lot of benefits to using a terminal shell. First of all, it's it might not be easy to use, but it uses up a lot of less memory. You can directly tell your computer what to do. It's really powerful. You can automate tasks. You can create scripts. And for majority of the time for cybersecurity and capture the flag competitions, they're going to be using a bash shell, which is a default shell on many Linux distributions. And you're going to have access to the shell during the competition. So let's see what a shell actually looks like. So there are 2 types of shell. There is a regular shell and there is a root shell. A regular shell is like your regular user. And how you will know if you are in a regular shell is when you see this $sign. If you see a $sign, you are in the regular shell. What is a root shell? A root shell is a shell with higher privileges, kind of like an administrator privileges. Having root, you can do whatever you want with your computer. And regular shells, they're kind of restricted with what they are able to do. So when you are in a root shell, you're going to see this $sign. And there is a command if you're in a regular shell and if you want to execute something with higher privileges, it's called sudo. So when you hit sudo and the command, it will allow you to execute in a regular shell things that root shells can do. So that's a very important command to remember. If you ever get an error saying you don't have enough privileges, just remember to use sudo. You can also switch user to root using sudo su-. Now I'm just going to show you what a shell looks like and what's the difference between a regular shell and a root shell. So right here is my Linux box, and right here is my terminal, and I'm going to go into terminal. And as you can see, I am in a regular shell right now because of this $sign. Now, if I want to go into the root shell, I'm going to hit sudo su that command, and I'm going to have to enter a password to switch. And now I am in the root shell because now it's a $sign, and you can clear that. And now we see we are in the root shell. So going back. So that is the difference between a regular shell and a root shell. Here's a little meme. Not sure if any of you've seen it before, but this little dude over here says, "Make me a sandwich." And this little person says, "What? Make it yourself?" But then this person says, "Pseudo, make me a sandwich." And this little person is obliged to agree. So that's kind of like, it kind of explains what pseudo is in a nutshell. You ever need your computer to execute something and it won't? Usually, most of the time, pseudo in the shell will fix things as long as you have the privileges. Okay, so now when we are used to changing directories on our computer by literally pressing on the folders within the folders and clicking on them, but there's a more powerful way to do it in Linux, and it's through the command line. And the command to change directories, it's called cd, and it literally means change directory. So you are by default in your home directory. And if you want to go back to your home directory, the command is cd tilde. And then if you want to go back to your parent directory, it's missing right here, but it's a cd with 2 dots. And in just a second, I'm going to demonstrate all of these commands. So if you want to change directories, you would use the cd command. For example, in a CTF, they might say that the problem is located in this particular folder, /problem/web security 101. To get to that problem in your shell, you're going to have to hit cd, and then you're going to have to type the path for that problem, which will be the problem/web security 101. So that is the cd command. Moving on to the ls command, which is to list files and directories. When you are using a GUI, you can easily hit the folder and it will list out in a nice graphical way all the files and other folders that are in that directory. But on Linux, you can list them out just as the same in a more organized manner, and you can view them all. So the ls command is used to list files and directories in Linux. And if you want a more detailed view, like who is the owner of the file, the permissions, is it a file or is it a folder, ls-l is going to come in handy. Now, in Linux, you can, in the terminal, and using Linux, you can hide files by putting a period before the file. So if there's a regular file, file.txt, it will not be hidden. But if you add a period before it and name it period, like .file.txt, it will be a hidden file. And many times in Capture the Flags, they like to hide files secretly, and you're going to have to uncover those files. To uncover hidden files, the command is ls-a. We are going to go over all of these commands in just a second. You're going to see a live view of them. But if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to type them out in the chat box, sorry. Okay. So how can you view file contents? There's a command called cat, which means concatenate, which allows you to view the contents of the files. What is the equivalent of sudo in Windows? You have to use, so there's a command prompt in Windows, but to use the command prompt as an administrator, you have to left click and say use command prompt as an administrator, and then you have to type the password. So you get a separate shell on Windows. I don't think Windows has a sudo command, but if I'm wrong, Abir or Amity, please type in the chat box. So view file contents. So back to cat. So cat means to concatenate, allows you to view the file contents. And it's very useful for viewing text files. And cat file name is the command to view the contents of the file. And I just want to make a point about, so the reason we're discussing the Linux terminal, Linux shell, is again because majority of the security devices in the world, they use a Linux OS. So majority of the times, if you're using a command shell, it will be Linux. So that's why we're not going over Windows command prompt, because in Capture the Flag and in cybersecurity, it's not used too much for Capture the Flag competitions. It's 99% of the times a bash shell, which is for Linux, so which is why we're going over Linux shell. And Abira has confirmed that there is no sudo in Windows. Okay, so back to the cat command. So you can view files by using the cat command. If you ever have to, no problem, hands. If you ever have to, view a secret hidden file, you can cat the file and be able to view it. There are some questions in the, can I download Bash on Windows? Yes, you can download Bash on Windows. There is a program that lets you do that. Maybe Abira will be able to help you out with that. And you will be able to access the recording of this workshop later. So now searching files for particular words. In our GUI, we usually have a search functionality at the top, and we can search those strings and it will give us a graphical representation. But what if you want to do the same thing in a shell or in terminal? Well, there's a very powerful command called grep. So grep searches files for characters and words that you are looking for. For example, if you wanted to look for the word flag, the command would be grep flag in quotes if you're looking for the exact term, file.txt. It can be used like this to look for all instances of the word flag in the file.txt. So we are going to move on. And now this is where Linux is super powerful. The command line in Linux is super powerful when you can combine 2 or more commands, and it's called piping. So what happens is piping takes the output of one command and using that as an input for the second command. For example, ls pipe grep and then the word file. So what would happen here is it would list all the files, but it would grep for the word file. So it would list all of the files and directories which contain the word file. Okay, so before we get to netcat, we're going to demonstrate some of these commands that we just learned. So I'm going to open up my terminal once again, and I am in a regular shell right here, indicated by the $sign. Now, I'm going to hit ls just to see what is available to me. So these are all the files that are available to me. Now, I see that there is a folder, sorry. So files and folders will show you different colors. So right now for me, anything in red is a file and anything in blue is a folder. So I'm going to change directories and go into the secrets folder because that looks interesting. Okay, so now I'm in the secrets folder. I'm going to hit ls to see what's in the secrets folder. And I don't see anything in the secrets folder, but there has to be some secrets in the secrets folder because it's labeled secrets for a reason. So can anyone in the chat box tell me what I could do next to see if there's anything in the secrets folder? Sudo ls, that is a good suggestion, Kai, but basically sudo ls would be, if it wasn't allowing us to execute this ls command, then we would do sudo ls. ls, I see a lot of ls-a. Okay, let's try ls-a. Let's see if we can see if there's any hidden files, because that is the command for hidden files. And what do you know? There is a file called secrets.txt. Okay, so that's great. Now there is a file called secrets.txt. Now how can I view this file? And I think you guys are already ahead of the game. I saw cat.secrets.txt. You're very correct. So if I go cat.secrets.txt, there we go. That is the secret file. It says, hello, this is a secret file. Sorry, there's no interesting secrets there, but now you see how you can view and print secret files. Okay, one thing I want to talk about Linux, which is very important that I forgot to mention, is you can't, it's case sensitive. So I can't do ls like that or ls like that. It won't work. I have to use it. I have to use the command the way it tells me to use the command. So like that, it will only work. Now what else I can do is, so we went through the ls command, we went through the cd command, and we went through the cat command. Now let's say I want to go back to where I was, home directory. I would have to go cd and 2 dots. And now I'm back in the home directory. Okay, that was cool. Now let's I'm going to list all the files, but I want to only list all the files or the folders that contain the word secret in them. So now I've taken ls output and piped it through grep secret to see only the files that contain the word secret. Okay, that's cool. Now I can see that there's 3 folders that contain the word secret, so I know where things are hiding. So that is how you can use some of the commands. So let's get back, and we're gonna come back in the shell in just a second. But let's talk about netcat. Netcat is a diverse tool that can do a lot, like port scanning, send data, and listen on a specified port. Basically, you could think of a port as like an open door that is allowing you to enter to either get some data or to send data. So where a netcat really comes in handy in capture the flag challenges is when they ask you to listen for data or get data from a specific port. It's going to come in really handy. So the command for netcat is nc, and you would put the website address and then the port number. And that would connect you to the port number at the specified website. But if they give you an IP address, you would do netcat, IP address, port number, and you would connect to port number at the IP address specified. So what we're going to do is now we're going to do a challenge from last year using netcat. So I'm going to go into the 2019 game. So if you were able to sign up for the 2019 game, now is a good time to log in, and so we can do this challenge together. I am not sure where I am right now. I think I'm in the web exploitation. So I'm going to get out of this. And so I am going to go into the general skills section where netcat is. This is what the 2019 game looked like. It might not be what the oops. Sorry if you guys can hear that. It's from the game. Okay, so hit enter. So right here, let's go to what's a netcat? Sounds like if you see the word netcat, then you know that you have to use netcat. That's an easy giveaway, right? Okay, so it's saying, can you connect to, this is the website at port 47229. Okay, so I'm going to copy that so that I can connect to it. I'm going to open the shell. So like I said, the shell will be given to you in the back end of the game, so you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to install or download anything. If some of you had concerns because you don't have that shell, you don't have to worry because it will be provided to you in the game. So when you're typing a password in Linux, it might feel like you're not typing a password because it's not going to show anything on the screen, but it's still going through. So don't worry. And let's hope that's the correct password and that I remember it. Okay, beautiful. So I'm going to paste that right here. So if you guys remember, can someone tell me what the command will be to connect to port 47229 on that website? In the chat, do you guys remember what it was? Yes, netcat, so NC. So NC website port, correct. So NC website port, and we hit enter. There you go. There is our flag right here. So that was a pretty that wasn't too bad, right? That was not a bad challenge. That was pretty easy. Just important to know how to use netcat. So let's close that, and now let's try a trickier challenge, and let's see if you guys what you guys think of it. Okay. So it's saying sometimes you need to handle process data outside of a file. Can you find a way to keep the output from this program and search for the flag? Connect to that right here. Okay, so again, I have to connect to a port number at the specified website. So it looks like a netcat problem, but it's saying that it needs to handle process data. And can I find a way to keep the output from this program and search for the flag? So there might be an additional component to this problem. So let's go into the shell and let's see if it will allow me to clear. So anytime you need to clear your shell, just type in clear and it will clear the shell for you. So let's paste that right here. So again, we're going to use netcat and we're going to connect to this port number and see what happens. Wow, okay, that is a lot of output. And okay, I'm not sure how I'm going to get the flag because that's a lot of output. Oops. I'm not going to be able to go through all of that output. Like I just don't have time to read every single line. Does anyone know how we can find the flag within all this output? Does anyone have any ideas? Let's clear that. Use grep, correct. So we can grep. So let's look. Let's paste that. Let's see. So let's see if they have tab completion. They do. So another thing is Linux has tab completion. So it will, if you just hit tab or your arrows, it will allow you to find all the commands you've done before. So we could use that, but I'm going to paste the command again, and I'm going to use grep. So we're going to pipe it through grep, and so picoctf flags are the format that they're in. They usually say picoctf. They don't mention the word flag, so I'm going to grep pico, just see if that shows anything up. And oops, I did not type in netcat the beginning. Sometimes you'll be doing the right thing, but you will be making a small mistake or like omitting something very tiny, which will be really frustrating, but make sure you keep double checking your commands. Okay, perfect. There it is. Pico CTF Digital Plumber. That's the flag. So that wasn't too bad, right? Okay, so let's get back to the presentation. So that was how to use netcat. Does it matter which order? Yes, it does matter which order because it takes the output from the first command and it takes it into the second command. So if you did grep first and then netcat, it wouldn't really work. So you'd have to netcat first and then do grep. So let's go to, so what to do when you are stuck? You're stuck, you can't remember how to use a command. What can you do? Well, there's two helpful commands you can use. Man command, which will display the user manual of any command in Linux, so ls, cd, cat, grep, nc, anything. And then you can also use two dashes and help for most commands, like ls dash help. So let's see what that would look like. So back in my terminal right here, let's do man ls. So here's the user manual for, here's the user manual to use ls command. So it tells you that to view this command, you have to do ls, your option, and you can specify a file if you want. So as we saw, ls-a was listing hidden files which start with the period. So do not ignore entries starting with a period. So, and you can, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of options. And so this is a really helpful command. If you don't know how to use a command, you can always look up the manual or the help command. Okay, perfect. So let's go back to the other thing I want to mention is if you really are stuck during a capture the flag, feel free to Google anything. Google is not cheating. like cybersecurity professionals use Google all the time. There's no way that someone can know everything. And the beauty of it is that there's so much that you're going to learn from these capture the flag challenges by Googling things, by reading on things, by expanding your knowledge. So if you're stuck at any time, don't be afraid to Google it. It's a wonderful resource. Okay, so that was a lot to take in. So if let's take a little breather right here, and if there are any questions, if there are any concerns, we can just take a couple of minutes to address those. If there's any questions, if you want to see a problem again, if you want to see a command again, we can go through that. So I'll just give it a couple minutes in the chat and see what happens. Does it matter which Linux distro we use? It doesn't matter what Linux distribution you use because they all will accept all of these commands that you are taught. There's very small differences in the commands that will not come up if you're not using specific programs. Kali is the one that cybersecurity professionals use. There's also Parrot OS. There's BlackArch Linux as well. These are Linux for cybersecurity, but Kali is the most popular one. How do we access Pico CTF? Okay, so I'm going to share the link with you to Pico CTF if you want to sign up for the game. Is Linux a type of language? Linux is a Linux is a type of operating system. So Pico CTF. So here is the link for the 2019 game. I've shared the link for the Pico CTF 2019 game. It's free. You can sign up and create an account if anyone else wants to follow along. Okay, just try this link without the game part. See if that works. Okay, perfect. So how are we doing with time? Okay, perfect. So let's get into the web security portion of things. And Abira and Amandeep, who are the mentors, who are cybersecurity professionals, are there to answer any questions that you guys have throughout the presentation. So please feel free to type any questions in the chat box. So what is web security? Web security is securing and protecting websites and web applications against cyber attacks. And you've seen that there's been many cyber attacks recently. They're growing, and a lot of times websites and web applications are the target. So the key in protecting web applications and websites is that developers are using secure coding practices and ensuring there are no vulnerabilities in the code. Because websites and web applications are built on the code, if there's a vulnerability, then it is present in the code in the way that it was built. So it's really important to make sure that there is no vulnerabilities in the code. If there are, to fix them or work around them so that a hacker doesn't get, a bad hacker doesn't get access to it, because there are good hackers known as ethical hackers. So if you're dealing with a CTF challenge that's in the web security part, then most of the time it's going to be a web page. It's going to be a web page to inspect or exploit, and it might be connecting to a port at a specific website. So most of the time it's going to be a web page, and you have to find some sort of flaw, exploit some sort of vulnerability. So let's talk about how web pages are built. So there are 3 fundamental languages, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And there's going to be a poll right now just to get an idea of how many of you have experience using either of 3 of these languages, maybe one of them, maybe all 3. So HTML is what serves the content. It is the text, the tables, it's all the content you see is through HTML. CSS is what makes the web page look pretty. It adds styling and format to the web page. And then JavaScript is what adds functionality to a website. It makes it interactive. It sometimes says, hello, user, how are you doing today? And it allows you to type in some form. It allows you to interact. There might be a game. So that's what JavaScript does. So to understand web security, we really have to understand how websites are developed, right? to understand what the coding is. Thank you all for sharing your experience in these languages. It's really good to see that some of you have some experience in them. That's really impressive. Okay, so moving on. This is what an HTML page looks like. At the top, it claims that it's doc type. It's an HTML file. HTML file have two major components, the head and the body. In the head, you have important information like page title and metadata. Metadata like what language the page is in, and things, SEO tags for search engine optimization purposes, and lots of other things. Most of the times the head is not to be concerned with because all of the content lives in the body. So the body, this is a simple page and all it has is a header. H1 is, sorry, I went back. Oops. Oh no, I'm going ahead instead of backwards. Okay, so a header, this is the header and this is what the page would look like if that was the code. This is an HTML page, body, close. So these are called tags, and whenever you have an open tag, you have to close the tag with the \HTML. So that is what an HTML page looks like in the back end. Let's move forward to see. So now you can add comments to an HTML page. The comments will not be visible on the page. The comments are only visible in the back end. And a lot of times, when developers are coding, they will, for themselves, they'll make a comment like password is 123 password, and they'll forget to, after they publish it, they'll forget to erase the comments. And this is very common. There's a lot of secret confidential information often hiding in comments. And this is what the comment looks like. There is this arrow, exclamation, 2 dashes, and then you embed your comment within that, and then you close it off with the dashes and the arrow. So you will not be able to see it visibly on the page. You'll have to go in the backend to be able to view the comments. And you'd be surprised how common this is. So obviously to prevent it, it's important that before publishing, making anything public, you review the code again and make sure there's no comments that are hiding any secret information. Comments are not always bad. Sometimes they're helpful. They're not always bad. They're just like, the page splits here or something. So they're not always bad, but sometimes there can be secret confidential information hidden in these comments. So that is what a comment looks like in HTML. So JavaScript. JavaScript code is inserted between script tags, and it can be placed in the head or body of an HTML or in an external file altogether. JavaScript interacts with your HTML and it's executed in your browser. So it could change HTML content, CSS, HTML attribute values. It can hide, show HTML elements. So JavaScript is very powerful when engaging with the HTML of the page. And if not used correctly, and if people have access to manipulate the JavaScript, then they could really change your page. They could delete it. They could do a lot of malicious things with your page. So this is what HTML and JavaScript would look like together. Here we have HTML, the head, and the body. So as mentioned, JavaScript can be embedded within the head of the page or the body of the page. So in this instance, it's embedded in the body of the page. And this is just a script that pops up an alert that says hello right here. So that's easy, right? It's just a script that pops up an alert that says hello. That's a very, very basic instance of what JavaScript can do. Now, how can we view the backend of web pages? How can we see what's happening in the backend? There's something called developer tools, and I will show you. We're going to demonstrate what developer tools look like. With developer tools, you can view and change a page's styles, which is CSS. You can debug JavaScript. You can view messages, run JavaScript in the console. So for many capture the flag events, the code, the flag parts are hidden in this code, and you have to find them. So let's see what these tools really look like. So let's go to picoctf.org right here. And so to view your developer tools, I'm going to be using Chrome, but all browsers have developer tools enabled. So Safari comes with them, Firefox comes with them, Chrome comes with them. I'm not sure about Internet Explorer, but I doubt anyone in this room uses that. So let's go to developer tools. I actually want to dock it to the bottom of the screen, so I have docked it. So here is the HTML of the page. As you can see, there's a head and it's closed. And this is all of the metadata. So there's the head, there's the body. The body has all of the content, as you could see. Let's see if we can find some JavaScript. And here's some comments that we can't see in the back end, in the front end, sorry, but they're hidden in the back end right here. And here's a JavaScript source, which is hosted externally because that's the JavaScript file right there. Okay, so that is what it looks like to view the back end of the page. And you can do that with developer tools. So now let's do a web exploitation challenge that involves using developer tools. So for this, I'm going to have to go back into the So now I'm going to go into the web exploitation portion. Just going to grab a glass of water. Okay. So just trying to find the computer to see where the challenges are. And if you have downloaded the 2019 game, or if you create an account, you feel free to follow along. Doesn't want to work. Enter. Perfect. Let's see if there's any questions in the meantime. So let's try this inspector problem. So let's go to the link, the web page. Okay, so here's a web page. What I made a website, how I use these to make the site, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Okay, so let's say you were faced with this problem. I don't really see any problems currently on the page. Does anyone have any idea of how I can approach this problem? Yes, I will use developer tools and inspect the elements, correct? So I showed you guys developer tools, but you can also view the source so that it's in full page. So here's just an easier way to look at it. So does anybody see anything of interest on this page that we couldn't see? Let's see. Anything of interest on this page? Correct, the comment. So it says HTML is neat. Anyways, 1/3 of the flag, Pico CTF. That's perfect. So we now have 1/3 of the flag. So what I would do is I would copy that and I would paste that. Okay, so now we have 1/3 of the flag. What about the other two? That's a great idea. Check the CSS and JavaScript. Okay, let's check the CSS file. Oh, there it is. Here's part 2, 3 of the flag. And now let's check the JavaScript file. Wow, that's 3 of 3 of the flag. So you would just copy and paste and submit that. So that was not too bad, right? That was a pretty easy challenge. All we had to do was open up developer tools. Okay, so you saw that developer tools can come in really in handy when doing CTFs, even from your day-to-day, for day-to-day stuff, it's really helpful. So let's talk about robots.txt file. So a robots.txt files, basically search engine crawlers crawl web pages on a frequent basis to categorize them on their search engine to see if any updates have been made, just to get a feel of the web pages. These are automatic web crawlers. So a robots.txt file tells search engine crawlers which pages or files the crawler can or cannot request from your site. That's from the Google Search Console help. So often this file will indicate web pages and directories not to crawl, which is good, but sometimes these pages that they have indicated not to crawl often contain confidential information and secrets. So obviously attackers and cyber criminals, knowing this, will look for these files, and then when they find that file, they will go to that specific page which has been requested not to crawl. So obviously, as a cybersecurity professional, we shouldn't be posting anything publicly that contains private information or confidential information like that. And not definitely, if there is, not claiming it in the robots.txt file and making it easier for cyber criminals to find that. So let's do another problem on the Pico CTF backend. So while that is loading in the backend, let's see what else there is to. Okay, before we move on, let's just solve the problem, because then we're going to talk about HTTP protocol. So let's solve the problem prior. Oops. I don't know if you guys heard that, but there's some nice music in the background for when you're playing the game. Okay, so back to this web exploitation computer. Okay, enter to view the problem list. Let's look at this. Where are the robots problem? Let's go to this link right here. Okay, so it says, where are the robots? Just a blank page. Any idea what I can do? What I can do to go to robots.txt. It's very smart. Go to robots.txt. Okay, so we're at robots.txt file, and it is saying disallow, and that's the link. So obviously it says disallow, so means there must be something, hidden on that page. Let's see what's on that page. Wow, that was easy. Pico CTF, there's our flag. So as you could see, that was pretty simple. When you find a flag, how do you enter it? Okay, let me show you how to do that. So you would go back to the problem, and you make sure you copy and paste your flag, or open it in a new window when you're doing it. And don't do what I did, because I didn't open it in a new window, and now it's reloading it again, which is my fault. Okay, so you go back to the problems. I don't know if this is lava or fire, but this poor man has to go through it all. Okay. So when you find the flag, you go to the problem, and you just paste the flag right here, and you hit submit. I've already submitted this flag before, but it will tell you that your flag is correct, and it will accept the flag. Perfect. Okay. So let's now talk about how web communications take place. How do you access a website? And how does a website know to send you the right content? Okay, so that is possible through the HTTP protocol. Whenever you visit a web page on the web, your computer uses the hypertext transfer protocol to download that page from another computer somewhere on the internet. So how it works is the client, which is your web browser, when you hit google.com, makes a request to the server requesting the content. The server then responds back, and you are with the content. That's the most simplest way to explain it. So when a client makes a request, a special method is specified. For example, if they want to view the content, if they want to view a web page, they request using the get method. So they will say get the web page, and then the server responds back with a status code. 200 is the most common status code, which means okay, which means yeah, here you go. There's also post and delete. Post method is obviously when you want to, when you log in somewhere or you fill out a form, then you're sending that information. So you're using the post method. Is there a difference between HTTP and HTTPS? Yes, we're going to talk about that in just a second. And obviously delete is to delete something. So let's see what it looks like. Here is you right here making a request. So what it would look like in your browser is get/http 1.1 host website name. Okay, so google.com makes the request and your server responds back. It would say 200, okay is the most common one. It's saying, okay, here you go, content type, text, HTML, here's the HTML file. Now, for images, it would make for every images and each and every asset, it makes a separate request and it sends back to you. And that happens so quickly in a millisecond, you don't even realize all these requests are being sent back and forth. And the content type, text, HTML. So now, if you are communicating, so all of this information that is being shared, it's being done in plain text. So imagine you're filling out a form with confidential information like your name, your address, etc. And it's using the post method and it's going over to the server in plain text, meaning if there was a hacker to intercept the traffic and view it, or they wouldn't even have to intercept the traffic. If they were just sitting there capturing these data packets, they would be able to view it in plain text and get all your confidential information. So what happens is when there's a secure website, it requests your web browser and it requests to communicate over a secure socket layer known as SSL. And now it's known as transport layer security. So it does that over a secure layer. And what that secure layer provides is encryption. And that is, if the website is secure and safe, you will see HTTPS because it's the hypertext transfer protocols over secure layer. So now all of your data that is being sent is encrypted, meaning that it's, and we're going to talk about encryption in the next workshop, which is all about cryptography. It's encrypted, so what's happening is all of that information is being not switched around, but it takes another form. So if someone were to capture those packets, it wouldn't make any sense to them. It would all be gibberish. So let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, so it's 6. So this workshop will go on, hopefully it will end earlier, but the latest it will go on is till 7. So HTTP header. So when you are sending these requests, when your browser is sending the request to the server and when the server is responding back, there's tiny bits of additional information that is being sent with these response or requests. They're called HTTP headers. Not to be confused with HTML head, which is completely different. So headers include custom information that is sent along with requests and responses. Example, like content type, cookies, user agent string. So let's actually see how we can view some of that information. So in your developer tools, if you go into the network platform, let's reload this page. And you can see all this stuff that's happening. My browser is making requests to the picoctf.server. Let's view this headers. So I made a request to picoctf. I made a GET request. They responded back with the 200 OK. And here's some extra things in the header. Right? Sorry, in this portion right here. Just some extra thing. Here's a cookie. And some of them will have a user agent, and there's a user agent right here. So as you can see, if you want to see these requests, you can also view them in developer tools in the network section. which is very, very important. Okay, so to find on your computer, you would have to add that option. So you would just, I'm not sure if you're using a Firefox or Chrome, you would have to enable it to make sure that you could see the network tab. So let's go back to, okay, so that's a little bit about HTTP headers. And if you can't see them, this is technically, this is what it looks like. An HTTP header, here's a screenshot that I've included. So cookies, not chocolate chip cookies. I could really use one right now, but what are cookies? So HTTP is a stateless protocol. What does that mean? It means that when let's say, for example, I'm going to Amazon.ca. I'm on Amazon.ca. Yes, you will have access to the slideshow after this lesson. So I'm on Amazon.ca and I added a box of chocolate chip cookies to my cart. And I don't only want cookies, I also want chips. I'm in a mood to snack. So although it's not a good idea to order snacks from Amazon, but I'm stuck at home. I don't feel like going to the grocery store because of COVID. So I'm going to order my snacks from Amazon.ca. I go back and I go to add chips. But when I go back to add chips, the cookies are gone from my cart. Why did that happen? That happened because HTTP is a stateless protocol. So it cannot track, it cannot maintain your current session. So it can't maintain that. So every time you go back, it refreshes the page. So what adds state to the HTTP protocol, meaning what allows us to retain this information? And that is cookies. Cookies allow users to have stateful connections to websites. Cookies are sent in your HTTP headers and they're stored locally in your web browser. Now there's cookies that are persistent that can be stored on your hard drive, but we're not going to talk about those today. Those are usually the marketing, tracking, advertising cookies. So basically this cookie is your access to your session, your secret session. It identifies you, right? It's like an ID card. So what happens if an attacker steals your cookie? Well, they can impersonate you. They can bypass authentication. They can pretend to be you and do malicious things with that, right? So that is very dangerous. Session hijacking, yeah, they can hijack your session. They can pretend to be you. So that's a little bit about cookies now, but what about user agent string? The user agent string contains information about your web browser name, your operating system, your device type, and lots of other useful bits of information. As you saw, it's included in the HTTP header. So many capture the flag challenges include a challenge where you have to change the user agent string. You have to pretend to be a different browser to view the page. So how would you go about doing that? And let's do a little demo right here. Let me just show you a cool plugin that you can use during your during the CTF challenge to edit cookies, because you might have to edit cookies during the CTF challenge. So this is the plugin. It's called Cookie Editor. You can add it to Chrome, and it allows you to update, edit cookies, manipulate them so that you can access certain information and you can pretend to be someone you're not. That is the cookie editor. Now let's look at this. So let's exit. I'm just using the Pico CTF regular platform, which has the same challenges as the game because I don't need to use the shell anymore. So let's see. This website can be rendered only by Pico browser. So when it's saying it can only be rendered by a certain browser, that means now I know that I can only view this in the Pico browser, right? So now I know that I have to somehow manipulate the user agent string. Let's go to this link right here. Oh, it says flag. Let's see. Oh, it says you're not Pico browser. So I can't view it. So there's something really cool another thing you can do using developer tools. So go into more tools, and we would go into network conditions. And right here, we can specify a user agent. And here's some predefined user agents right here if it ever asks you for a predefined one, like Internet Explorer maybe. But most of the times it's a custom one. So let's type in Pico browser. Okay. Now with the Pico browser there, let's update. Oh, there's the flag right here. Okay. So now we are going to get into some hacking and some active attacks, and it's getting really dark, so I'm going to go and turn on the lights. And in the meantime, please feel free to ask any questions before we talk about code injection attacks. I'm just going to turn the lights on because it's really dark. Okay, so let's talk about code injection attacks. Code injection is the general term for attack types which consist of injecting code that is interpreted and executed by the application. This type of attack exploits poor handling of untrusted data. What does that mean? So basically, untrusted data, and this is from OWASP, this little section. Untrusted data is data that you yourself don't know, like you as a web developer, as an organization, you don't trust. So, for example, there is a form on your web page, and through that form, an attacker is able to execute code, and that is when a code injection attack takes place. They should not be able to execute any sort of code in that form. The input should be validated. You don't trust that data, so you should not allow them to be able to execute code using those forms. So in the back end, you have to make sure you take measures to prevent that. But many times that prevention is not taken, and code injection attacks are the most common attacks on websites. For example, two of the most common ones are XSS, cross-site scripting, and SQL or SQL injection attacks. So now we're going to take a look at how these attacks take place. So what is cross-site scripting? Cross-site scripting is when an attacker is able to inject their code into a website, and then that code executes when a visitor visits that web page. So that is a cross-site scripting attack. So now, what are the implications of this attack? Using this attack, cyber criminals can steal passwords, steal cookies, they can send you a malicious payload, they can do so much with it. So it's really important that organizations take the time to make sure that they validate that input that is being put into forms, or if they have anywhere where users can type things in. There's two types of cross-site scripting attacks. There is a reflected cross-site scripting attack, and there's a stored. Stored is obviously the more dangerous of the two. Why? Because the code is persistent, and it's stored in the web application. So whenever a user visits the page, the code is executed. An example could be a blog comment section. You see a blog, and you type in a comment, and you see that there is an XSS vulnerability, which means it'll allow you to execute some code in the comment section. So you type in a code and you leave it there. Now, every time somebody visits that blog page, they will be hit with the code. And that code could be a cookie stealing code that every time they visit that web page, the cookie gets sent to the attacker and they steal the cookie, as an example. Or it could be a malicious payload, like sending every time they visit something downloads on their computer. Now, reflected is a one-time attack. How it takes place is you put in a code, and oftentimes that code is also appended to the URL. So because let's say you find a banking website that has a section where you can input things, and you're able to append code to the URL. So you take that entire code and you paste it somewhere. You paste it on Reddit. You say, hey, check out this cool competition this bank is having. And now every time the visitor clicks on that code, whoever clicks on that link, that code is reflected back to the user who clicks on the link. So it's not persistent, it's a one-time thing. So here is how attackers usually test for if there is an XSS vulnerability. This is a very basic test. What they do is they do script, alert, they put some message here, and they close the script. What this will do is do a pop-up, and if they see this JavaScript is executing, then they know that they are able to execute JavaScript in a section that they should not be able to execute, which means that there is a code injection, there is a vulnerability for cross-site scripting. So now let's look at what a actual scripting looks like. So right here, I'm just going to power up my I'm powering up a web application that is vulnerable on purpose so that you can exploit it. And before I do that, I just have to start my SQL and my web server Apache. Okay, so let's visit that web page. Okay. We are here. So this is a vulnerable web page. Anybody can download it. It's a vulnerable web application, and anybody can download it to practice hacking, to practice ethical hacking, and see how some of these codes work. So I'm just going to change the security level to lowest so that we can execute this attack. So let's go into the stored cross-site scripting. So here's a website, has a comment section right here. I'm going to assign the guest book. I'm going to say, my name is Bob, and I'm going to say, hello, this is my favorite site. I'm going to assign the guest book. There, the comment is right there. Now I'm going to come in, I'm going to be an attacker. I'm going to say evil person. And what I'm going to do, so it won't allow me to type more characters. So just evil person. Hello, and here you go. I think this the characters are limited, so I'm just going to put in a script right here. Let's see. XSS script. Okay, so I'm going to assign the guest book. Oh, and did you see that I received the pop-up? So let's say, okay. So now every time, this is a stored, so every time, let's reload the page, somebody visits the web page, they would be hit with the code, with the malicious code. Obviously, this is not a malicious code. This is not doing anything, but this is demonstrating that there is a vulnerability. Now let's go back to the reflected. Let's go to the reflected and see what that will look like. Let's do the same thing here. Let's write a hello script. Let's hit submit. And that is there one time. Now, let's say I take this URL. As you can see, the script is right there. Obviously, an attacker would create a more malicious script, maybe a script that takes the user's cookie and sends it back to the attacker without even the user, the victim of the attack, even noticing what's taking place. They would take that entire URL and they would send it off to the attacker. So that is what a cross-site scripting. Is there a question? So that is what the cross-site scripting attack would look like. So that is one of the really common code injection attacks. Now let's talk about SQL injection attacks. But before we talk about SQL injection attacks, we have to understand what SQL or SQL is. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's a programming language used to communicate with databases. And it's used to retrieve, put, update, or delete data from a table. And to do that, it uses a select statement to retrieve information from a database. So let's say you have a web server, and then you have a database, and that database stores important information like usernames and passwords. So for that server to retrieve that information from that database, it would have to use SQL, the language, because SQL is a language that's used to communicate with databases. And to do that, it would use select statement. Let's talk about it. So what is a SQL injection attack then? So SQL injection is a code injection attack that takes advantage of how a server interacts with the database server. So it takes advantage of how the SQL statements are sent. So the query for the SQL query is manipulated to make it do something it's not supposed to do, which results in access to data, bypassing authentication, and changing of data. So let's see an example of what that would look like. So there you have a table that is storing all the information in the database, for example, username and passwords. So I'm going to go and I'm going to log into Amazon.ca because I really want to buy my cookies. So I'm going to give my username and I'm going to give my password. What's going to happen then is that database is going to communicate, that server is going to communicate with the database that holds all my information through SQL and say, okay, find the username and find the password for this username. And if the username and the password matches, then I will be able to log in. And if, for example, if the username is correct, but the password doesn't match, then I won't be able to log in because that's not the correct password, right? So what the select statement would look like is through the tables, it would say select from users where username is equal to username that I put in and password is equal to password. Now, how could I manipulate this query so that I could bypass this? What could I do? So what if I injected select from users where username, I added an extra apostrophe, and password is equal to whatever, any like a random, these quotes, or 1 is equal to 1. Now 1 is always equal to 1, so this would come out to be true. This statement would become true. So because this statement is true, it would allow me to bypass, and the query would end up looking the same as the query right here, and it would essentially allow me to bypass and allow me to be able to access that page. So let's actually test this out. Let's do a challenge. So let's try a SQL injection challenge. Let's try this challenge right here. So here is a web page. Let's say you're presented with this problem and it's confusing what to do. There's just a bunch of pictures. So what you could do is, let's see what's in the menu. There's an admin login page and there's support. Let's see what the support says. So we could see this person is commenting something and an admin is commenting that. It says, hi, I tried adding my favorite Irish person, Conan O'Brien, but I keep getting something called a SQL error. Now, when you see anything SQL, you know that there might be a possibility that this website might be vulnerable to a SQL injection attack. So let's see what happens if we try logging in. So let's say I would put admin username. Now, let's go back to the query. Let's go back to the query. Menu bar will not let me go back to my right here. Perfect. So select from users where username is equal to admin. And how can I manipulate it so that I could bypass that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste from this section up until here so that this part stays within the quotes, but it would 1 is equal to 1 and it would execute and that would be true. And let's see if that works. Let's paste that value right here and log in and see what happens. But before we log in, let's see what happens if we type in a regular value. Let's say login failed. Okay, so that's not working. So let's try what we pasted from the SQL query. Oh, and there you go. We got our flag. So I was able to manipulate the SQL query using that code. And so that means this website is vulnerable to SQL injection. So that is what SQL injection looks like. And it will be, it's almost always in CTFs that include web security. XSS and SQL injections are almost always there in these types of attacks. In the capture the flag for web security. So how can you prevent that? So you should patch all your systems and servers if they're running any outdated versions, which is important. But more importantly, you have to do input validation for incoming and outgoing input. No random person should be able to submit code and it should not be able to execute. So you have to put parameters in place so that nobody can just inject code and it executes for incoming, but also outgoing. When I showed you that cross-site scripting example where the person is able to copy and paste that URL and send it, before the server serves that content to the person, they should be validating that output, and they should not. It should prevent it from sending to that person. So that's really important in preventing these types of attacks. So let's talk about a summary of what we've learned. We are going to advance everything we learned in Web Security 201, which will be next year, but right now this was the 101 workshop. So we went over the terminal and shell, and the important commands we went over were cd, ls, cat, grep, man, help, netcat, which is a tool. Cd is to change directories. Ls is to list files, and ls-a can be used to list hidden files. Cat is to view the contents of the file. Grep is to search for particular strings in the file. Man is to view the user manual, and help is to get more help for a command. And netcat is a tool to connect to a listening port for a particular web page or an IP address. We talked about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and how we can view the back end of websites using developer tools. We talked about the HTTP protocol and how it works, how our browsers send requests to the server and the server responds back, giving us access to the page. We talked about HTTP headers and how they can include things like cookies, user agent string, and we even learned how to manipulate user agent string so that we can view pages not meant for a certain browser. We talked about code injection attacks like XSS and SQL injection, and we did a little demonstration of how they would work. So that is everything we learned today, and it is a lot. So what I would encourage everyone to do is to enhance their learning by continuing to practice your skills. So there is going to be a resource hub available at dmzryerson.ca/canhack, and which is where the recording for this session will be posted. You're welcome to go back and view the recording at any time. It's going to be available until throughout the entire time till the competition. And we will also be sharing important links and resources that you can use to enhance your learning in that section. You can go look at the Pico CTF primer, which is available at picoctf.org, and it's going to give you a really good breakdown of all the skills you need. OWASP is a great tool for web security and web application attacks, and you can go view all the attacks, and they have cheat sheets, and it's a really good resource to really get more advanced in these topics. And there is a game developed by Google right here at this link, which you can practice your cross-site scripting skills and SQL injection practice at this website. So there's a lot of resources for you to continue to practice your skills. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for your time. Please remember to sign up for the Piazza platform. It's going to become our primary communication platform. And if there's any questions, let's say you want to view the workshop again and you have any questions you come across, you can post those questions and we will be able to help you. So next week, we're going to be covering Cryptography 101, which is really exciting. We're going to talk about encryption and really exciting things. And now is a time, if there are any questions, we can answer them right now. Yes, of course, I can go back to the slide, but these will be available here. I'm going to copy and paste the link for you guys so you could save the links. Oops, I did not mean to do that. I'm going to copy and paste all the links and post them in the chat so everybody has access to the links. Here you go. These are all the links. Feel free to copy and paste them. How to enter the game interface. So the recording will be available at the dmz.ryerson.ca CanHack in the resource hub. So let's go to that webpage right now. Let me show you what you might have to enable JavaScript or Flash to be able to open the challenges, or you might have a blocker on. So make sure your ad blocker is disabled. So let's go to the DMZ website. Okay, to open that up in Safari. So right here in the resource hub is where the recordings will be posted. So yeah, so we are all here for questions. If you have any questions, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you so much everyone for joining us.